All right, so I want to give you guys my top 5 passing offenses in the NFL going into the 2022 season. Now, I already saw a couple of these on Instagram and Twitter, and let me just say, I didn't like what I saw. Now, this is going to be in order, so it's going to be from number 5 to number 1. These are going to be ranked accordingly, so if you want to disagree with the rankings, you have every right to call me an idiot down in the comment section down below. But at number 5, I'm going to start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has always been amongst the top in the NFL over the last couple of years in passing attempts per game. However, I think this season there's going to be a little bit more predication on getting the run game more involved in the offense. And I'm not saying that Tampa Bay doesn't try to run the football at all. I'm just saying that I think they're going to end up running the football a little bit more than what they have done in the past. With Bruce Arians stepping down, taking a front office role, I still think that this offense is still going to be fairly aggressive. But I think Bruce Arians was a little bit more pass heavy. So I think with him being a little bit out of the mix now when it comes to the coaching staff, I think that we could see the possibility that Brian Leftwich puts a little bit more emphasis on running the football with Leonard Fournette. Then you still have a great group of wide receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You just signed slot receiver Russell Gage during the course of free agency, which I didn't even know until I was researching this, because Russell Gage is probably one of the more underrated slot receivers that we have in the NFL. And I think that he's an upgrade from what they had at the slot receiver in the past. Scotty Miller wasn't bad, but I kind of think that he benefited from playing with Tom Brady. So you have Russell Gage there, you still have Scotty, and you have Tyler Johnson. Now, you look at the tight end position. Gronk retires. You lose O.J. Howard to free agency. He's now at the Buffalo Bills. It's not as if O.J. Howard was involved in the offense, but Cameron Brate is going to get more volume. He's going to get more targets with him pretty much being the more reliable option that they have at that position at the moment. So I think that this offense is still going to be amongst the best when it comes to throwing the football. I have them at number 5. The Minnesota Vikings come in at number 4 for me. I think that a lot of people are sleeping on the Vikings offense. And the main reason for that is because a lot of people in the media have this narrative about Kirk Cousins being overrated. He's not a great quarterback. When actually Kirk Cousins balled out last season. As a matter of fact, 2021 was probably the best season that Kirk Cousins ever had in his NFL career. If you're looking at it from a efficiency standpoint, he threw for 4,221 passing yards, 33 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions, and completed 66.3% of his passes. Now, I think that he's going to get elevated by their new head coach and Kevin O'Connell, who comes from that Sean McVay coaching tree. And so far, it's been pretty successful. We saw Zach Taylor was just in the Super Bowl not too long ago with Cincinnati. He comes from McVay's coaching tree. And I think that Kevin O'Connell is going to be the next in line to be able to elevate his quarterback in a sense. Because if you listen to Justin Jefferson, who appeared on a episode a couple of days ago of NFL Total Access, he said that our offensive style is not going to be run first anymore. Just us being able to put different people in different positions and distribute the ball really is what's going to change. So you can expect Justin Jefferson to probably have a crazy season. He probably could end up having a season where he goes for maybe 1,800 yards. We also can't forget about Adam Thielen and then KJ Osborne, who kind of had a little bit of a breakout season in 2021. He's probably going to end up being really good as well. But the person that I am the most excited to watch on this Minnesota Vikings offense this season is tight end Irv Smith. Now, Irv Smith has been on Minnesota's roster for a while, out of Alabama. And yet we haven't really seen his skill set really probably utilized with the previous coaching staff. So I'm really hoping that Kevin O'Connell finds a way to get Irv Smith involved because he has a lot of talent. He has great speed. I think that if Irv Smith can really get going, that can really bring a added dimension to this offense. And I think that it will happen because anytime you have an offense that has a great tight end, you couple that with a really good wide receiving core, that just makes your offense doggone near unguardable. Now, we already know what Dalvin Cook is going to do in the run game department, but this ranking is solely based off passing offenses, and I think that Minnesota is going to have a top 5 passing attack this season. Like I said, a lot of people are stuck with this narrative that Kirk Cousins is just this average, slightly above average quarterback, but with Kevin O'Connell, expect him to be able to take Kirk Cousins' game to the next level, and I wouldn't be surprised if we end up hearing Kirk Cousins in the conversation for being a top 10 quarterback during the middle portion of this season. Because you remember what happened when Matthew Stafford got traded from Detroit to the LA Rams, right? He ended up going from afterthought or Matthew Stafford to Matthew Stafford, a top 10 QB. So all it really takes is the right coach with the right scheme. I think that Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell are going to hit it off. And I think that we could see Kirk Cousins playing some of the best football that he ever has played during his career in Minnesota. The LA Chargers come in at number 3. This offense last year really got things rolling. Their offensive coordinator, Joe Lombardi, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up hearing his name and head coaching discussion sooner rather than later, depending on how successful the Chargers 2022 campaign is as a whole. But for right now, I think he's definitely one of the more underrated offensive coordinators in the league. You look at the second-year elevation that we saw from Justin Herbert last season, over 5,000 yards passing. The only knock on him is that you kind of would like to lower the turnovers a little bit. He had 15 interceptions. Now, if he can get that down, I think that he could end up being in the MVP conversation this year. Then you have a really good group of wide receivers. You have Keenan Allen, which I've already gave the rant several times, but I'm going to say it again. Keenan Allen is a top 10 wide receiver. I cannot understand for the life of me why people do not view Keenan Allen as a top 10 wide receiver. If you talk to any NFL head coach or any player in the league right now and you tell them to name their top 10 wide receivers right now, 2022, all of them are going to have Keenan Allen. So I don't understand how players and coaches view Keenan Allen as a top 10 wideout, but yet people and the NFL media and fans view him as overrated. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But you have Mike Williams coming off a career year. He's probably one of the best deep threats in the NFL. And he doesn't have to do it with speed. He's a really good 50-50 ball. He's somebody that you just throw it up to. He can go get it. Like, Mike Williams made so many fantastic catches that didn't get a lot of attention that they deserve. There were so many catches that Mike Williams made last year that should have made SportsCenter's top 10 plays. Really. Then you have Joshua Palmer, who many Chargers fans feel could be in for a breakout season. You also have Jalen Guyton, who is more there for speed. And then we also have to count Austin Eckler into the mix just because he's a running back, but he also contributes a lot into the passing game. Then they added tight end Gerald Everett. But another reason why I think the Chargers are going to have one of the best passing attacks this season is because they also continue to improve the offensive line. They recently drafted offensive guard Zion Nelson, and now their offensive line is all but set. The only thing they need now is a legitimate starting right tackle. And if they can get the right tackle situation figured out, it's no reason why they can't be no higher than third on this list. They potentially could end up having the best offense in the NFL this season, but with the right tackle situation, don't really know how that's going to pan out. So that's kind of why they come in at number 3 on my list, but this still should be one of the top 3 best passing attacks in the NFL this season. The Los Angeles Chargers were number 3. We stay in LA. The LA Rams are my first to last team before we get to number 1. You look at the Rams last season. Their offense was fantastic. But they did have a cold stretch late in the year because Matthew Stafford ended up having the turnover bug. But then they started to get things figured out during the playoffs. But for Matthew Stafford, he had a really fantastic season. He probably could have been in the MVP discussion. I'm so happy for Matthew Stafford that now people are starting to actually realize how good this guy actually is, because he had so many haters when he was playing for the Detroit Lions. And I always told people, it's always about the organization and where you go. Depending on where you go, if you go to a losing organization, you don't win a lot of games. If you're a good quarterback, it doesn't matter, because people are still going to fault you, because a lot of people think that the quarterback position is the end-all be-all and the win-loss record is a reflection on the quarterback, which is not true. It's a little bit of a reflection on the quarterback, because if you have a good quarterback, you're able to win a couple more games, but overall, you still have to have a good team. So I'm happy that Matthew Stafford balled out. He did what he was supposed to do. He finally won the Super Bowl. And now, with the fact that this wide receiving core got even better, you added Allen Robinson and free agency. He's one of the better wide receivers that we have in the NFL. Sean McVay was incredibly enthusiastic about Allen Robinson. I was hearing him talking about him on the I Am Athlete podcast, I believe, and they were talking about the decision to bring him in. Basically, he likes the fact that he's really good outside of the numbers, which is a good strength of Matthew Stafford when it comes to throwing the football, and he has a really strong arm, and he's also really fantastic throwing the football outside of the numbers in his own right. So when you conjure that up with the fact that you have a guy like Allen Robinson who can go ahead and win those 50-50 ball matchups, I think that it's a match made in heaven for Matthew Stafford. And really, you look at Tutu Atwell, I think he could have a little bit of a bigger role in the offense this year. You also have Cooper Kupp coming off a career year. Then you have Van Jefferson as well, who a lot of people overlook. Last season, it was easy to overlook Van Jefferson because you had Robert Woods before he got injured. You had Cooper Kupp going off, and then you signed OBJ. But Van Jefferson is kind of a underrated piece in this offense. Now, there is a strong possibility that OBJ could return to the LA Rams. Sean McVay already said that the Rams would love to have him back, but we probably have to wait closer to the middle portion of the season. Around October is where many people expect OBJ to start getting back healthy, and that's probably where we might end up seeing him sign with the Rams coming back. And I would love to see OBJ back with this Rams offense, because if he ends up coming back, then I think the Rams probably will have the best passing attack in the NFL. So you have the offensive line concerns. Some people think that the Rams offense may take a step back because Andrew Whitworth finally retired. Finally. And you lost Austin Corbett, who signed with the Carolina Panthers. But the offensive line is still going to be a top 10 unit. There are some guys that they have stepping up that they have a lot of confidence in, that they have given a lot of praise to, such as their left tackle. So I think that the offensive line should pick up from where it left off last year, and it possibly could be a little bit better in a sense. So this offense, to me, is the second best offense when it comes to throwing the football going into the 2022 NFL season. Before I give you guys my number one passing offense for this season, make sure that you guys go ahead, check out the JT Sports Podcast. I don't know if a lot of you guys know this, but all of the videos that are uploaded on the channel are segments from the JT Sports Podcast. If you want to listen to the whole entire podcast in its entirety, check out the JT Sports Podcast. It's available on every single podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. Wherever you get your podcast from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. Make sure you guys go ahead, check it out. Number one, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, a lot of people think that I'm deriding Cincinnati this year, but I really believe that Cincinnati is going to have the best offense in the NFL this year, and I possibly think that this could be a record-setting offense. Joe Burrow balled out last season behind the worst, or one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, and he took them to the Super Bowl. Now, imagine the damage that he's going to do this season. Now that the fact that he has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL is crazy. They went from the worst to the best in just a span of one offseason. You already have Jonah Williams at left tackle. He was your best offensive lineman last season. You have Ted Karras at center. You signed offensive guard Alex Kappa. He's going to be starting at right guard. And you brought in La'el Collins, who's going to be starting at right tackle for you. Really, the only concern that I probably have is left guard Carmen Jackson. But outside of him, This is one of the best off the lines in the league. Top 5, no worse than top 10. And you couple that with the fact that you still have all your 3 starting wide receivers from last year, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. And think about this. Jamar Chase had the kind of season he had last year. He was only a rookie. That's scary. That's scary, people. He's only going to get better. If he had the kind of season he had as a rookie, imagine what he's going to do in year 2. And with the fact that Joe Burrow has one of the best off the lines in the NFL, it's going to be scary, man. For a lot of you people who are not on the Cincinnati Bengals bandwagon, it's not too late to grab a ticket, ladies and gentlemen, because I promise you, this is going to be an offense that's going to set a lot of records. I think they will. I think that Joe Burrow potentially could end up winning MVP. I think that they're going to have the best passing attack in the NFL. I think that from a talent standpoint, they have the most talented offense in the NFL. You have the best wide receiving core in the NFL. Not up for debate, because all 3 of these wide receivers would be your number 1 on the majority of teams. Okay? You also have Joe Mixon in the backfield. So this offense is going to be phenomenal. But from purely throwing the football, this offense is going to be a beauty to watch, people. So these are my top 5 passing offenses going into the 2022 NFL season. Let me know how you guys feel about this list. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who did I leave out? Who should have been on this list? Let me know. Call me an idiot down in the comment section down below. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on podcast, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, and let me know your thoughts.